Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, Vinny, back on the Carpe Vanguard deck profile. So if you enjoyed it, come subscribe and let's go study. This time we have we have our last Divine Z's Divine skill decks, and that would be Krysrain from Lyrical Monasterio in set 1. So all around, Krysrain is a very interesting one. Her Divine skill is probably the most disappointing out of all of them, simply because it does rely a little bit on top decking very specifically, because it's so easy to see coming. Not to say that it's bad, but it's like kind of iffy. But either way, the deck is consistent in terms of it gets rear guards really easily, it gets hand cards really easily, it gets energy really easily. It's just all around a good deck in the regards that if we just don't look at the divine skill, it's pretty solid. So let's go and get the deck before I start shall we see what we got, because honestly this deck is pretty good to use, I guess. So first of all, obviously we have our energy generators, so you may have one ride deck crest in your ride deck because it's a ride deck crest. Auto ride deck, when you ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you win second, energy charge 3. Continuously, you may have to 10 energies, and auto at the beginning of your ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy blast 7 to draw a card. All around pretty solid. You guaranteed get 3 energies every turn, and once you hit Krysrain, you will get 3 more energies every turn, so you will consistently hit that 7 a lot more easily. And not to mention the fact, well, yes, there are cards in the deck that do take up 3 energy at a time. If you're not using any of those cards at the moment, you can use this card to energy blast 7 to draw a card, which can help amp up your hand cards a little bit more and get more different card names on board, because that's the entire point of Krysrain. So very solid card to have as our energy to crest, obviously. Then we have our starter in Wonder Lavender Your Soul, so grade with 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto repugnant for a second draw card, standard starter, none to the 2 special battles, just a free draw if you go second. You can really run any starter you want, none of the ride deck requires her, but if you do want to run under the starter, you can. I just choose to run under the starter because canonically she is the actual starter of the deck, so take that as you will. Then we have our Overt Trigger, and that is Mysterious Twins, Romia and Rumia. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Overt Trigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that guard, draw a card, choose one of your units, and gets +1 for the turn, and if revealed it during draw check, activate its additional effect, which you get to during this fight, you get during your turn. All your rear guards get +10,000 power. That is incredibly broken if you pull that on turn 1. Because regardless if you damage check this or draw check this, you get a draw in a million and someone's not getting hit for this turn, or someone is getting hit this turn. And if you drive check this on turn 1, for the rest of the game, your entire rear guard will get +10,000 power, meaning you can rush on turn 2, and your opponent will probably take all of them because every single column is hitting for at least 20-something. Or you just wait till you get to grade 3 and then you bully them down with a bunch of numbers. Because while yes, Krysrain does change the numbers of a unit to match her power, the Overt Trigger will overwrite that. So yeah. Oh, by the way, if you pull that on Krysrain, which I did do once, that puts so much pressure on your opponent, because if they PG Krysrain and they only had a PG for Krysrain, then suddenly, even if they could take the other one, or if they could block the other one, that Overt Trigger says no. So one of Romia and Rumia, very solid to pull her when you're actually swinging with Krysrain, and then when you do pull it, regardless of when you're swinging, as long as you pulled it when you were swinging, your entire rear guard for the rest of the game will always be big beat sticks. One of Romia and Rumia, very solid to have. You can run any of the Lyrical Monasterio overs. I just picked this one because it fits the theme of mermaids a little bit more. Then we have our normal triggers. First up, of course, we run 3 copies of our crit in Cheerful Sunshine Walrus, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. Standard crit, none spell. You can really run any crit you want. I just chose to run her because she was in the demo deck, which came in the same deck as Wonder Lavender, so I just felt like it was appropriate to run her as well. Then we have 4 Precious Tune Edwidge, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard. But she boosted, put the unit to soul, choose one of your units, 2k for the turn. All around, pretty solid. The deck doesn't use up soul, if at all. I don't remember how much soul it uses up, which is weird considering I just did the match with this deck, but I don't remember using that up that much soul. But if it does, free soul charge, and something gets +2k, which could technically make the difference in terms of numbers. So there's that. It is nice to have 7 crits in this deck, I will say this. Then we have 4 draws in Transparent, Snow, Covered, Knight, Bear Toy. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continues Sentinel, continues Guard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, she gets +5k shield. So, being a 10k shield is nice to have, and also being a draw trigger, which helps increase the hand. And you do want different card names. And as we will come to see, we don't really have that many different card names. Like, the deck pretty much looks like a normal deck would, except for one specific thing. But believe it or not, this deck does consistently hit the different card names like a normal deck, simply because when you think about it, a normal deck can actually hit 5 different card names on board pretty easily, because it also counts as the Vanguard, so it's not really that hard, especially because this deck calls rear guards out the wazoo, so you don't really need to worry about it. Either way, though, being able to help increase the hand cards and see more different card names is nice, and being a 10k shield for when your opponent counterattacks you is pretty solid, because sometimes your divine skill might not be enough, and because this is the weakest of the divine skills, at least in my opinion, you do want to be able to survive past the point of using the divine skill. So 4 of Bear Toy. Then we have 4 copies of our heal trigger and Talkative Hour Tenmas. Great Zoe boost, 15k shield, 5k power, standard heal. Nothing special. You can really use any heal you want. I just chose to run this heal because, again, like the critical trigger, it came out in the same deck as Lyrical, and because those are canonically the triggers of, what's her name? Krysrain, we might as well run her. I choose to not run the counter heals because I don't like their effects too much. If you want to run the counter heals, go ahead, but this is my preferredness. So we have the 7 crits, we have the 4 heals, we have the 4 draws, and then we move on to our grade 1s. So let's go ahead and start out with the only reason this deck, like the backup plan, in case like everything goes to shit. Because originally I thought this deck was going to be like Peltra, where you want to have as many different cards as possible. Again, surprisingly, not that hard to hit 5 different names. But let's just go ahead and go over the 1 card that could, or the 4 cards that could make it a lot easier, and that is our 4 PGs, all of which share the exact same skills. I'm going to go over their skills before I go over their names. Grade 1 boost 0, so it's K base, continues Sentinel. You have to 4 Sentinels in deck and also put on guard circle. Choose one of your units, it cannot be hit on the battle, and if your hand is more cards in it, choose a card from hand, guard, standard PG. Nothing too special about it. So basically what that means, if this and another one of the card is in your hand, we place it on guard circle, you don't have to guard much great, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, and then when your opponent counterattacks you, you can throw down any of these 4 girls, and they will automatically defend you, and nothing will hit you. Typically, you will not use that ability because you will be able to bounce most of your rear guards to hand in one go, and then when your opponent counterattacks you, you'll probably be safe for that turn, and then you'll have to do a whole another turn of gameplay, and then if they live that turn, then maybe you will use these PGs, but typically you won't use them until that turn. So we run 4 of them, just in case you need rearguard pressure, because there is a turn that you can bounce all of your rearguards to hand, so being able to call PGs is not the worst thing in the world. So have it still while warm. Womia, the new PG, which I chose to run with Krysrain, because she came out at the time of Krysrain's release. And then we have Musical Committee Nicoline, because she's one of the most commonly used PGs whenever I build a deck. Same with Soapy Splash Ravenia, and then Diva Refreshing Calm Christine gets the point in the deck because Krysrain's a mermaid, and mermaid. So we have our 4 different PGs right here. It does increase the odds of this deck. Weirdly enough, not seeing a PG, but it doesn't matter because they see PGs enough anyways, and it does increase the different names in the deck. So worst case scenario, if you do need to call PG to rearguard for different named units, you can, because you have 4 of them to rely on. So one of each of them. You don't really need to do this because I promise you it has not come back to bite me in the ass at all, because I've never needed to call PG to rearguard. But if you do need to, 4 of is an option. Then we have our other grade 1s that aren't at weird numbers. First, we're 3 copies of After School, as always, Yulia. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto rearguard, when she boosts a friend's unit, she gets 5,000 power for that battle. So she is a part of what I call the Friends package that is pretty much applicable in any Lyrical Monasterio deck, where you run Melty because Melty is just good, you run a Veta because a Veta is just a constant 10k, and you run Yulia with that because if she boosts either of those 2, automatically she's a 13k booster. So Yulia is just all around a very solid grade 1. And obviously the rest of the Friends package is in here because it's just a consistent amount of like spam units on rearguard and get good numbers out of it. So good card, 13k booster, makes 23k calls pretty easily. Just a very solid 3 of, and that's all I can really much say about Yulia. Then we have 3 copies of course, Monasterio Veta, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Friend continues rearguard circle. If you have another unit in the same column as her, whether that unit has friends or not, that and this unit both becomes friends. So if you put her behind Vanguard circle, she will forever be in friends. And then continues rearguard circle. If you have another friend, she gets plus 2,000 power. So again, put her behind Vanguard circle, she will always be a 10k base. I mean, she's a 10k base as long as something stays in her column, so it doesn't necessarily have to be behind Vanguard Circle, but if it's behind Vanguard Circle, it will always be a 10k base, because you can't get rid of the Vanguard. Even if you delete the Vanguard, because there's still another unit in the same column as her, she will still be that 10k base. So 3 of Veta, all around very solid grade 1 to have, and again, it definitely helps out with Yulia's 13k boosting skill, so it's a very solid card to have at 3. Then we have 3 copies of Smiley Albina, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rearguard or guard circle. If you have a grade 3 grade Vanguard, Krysrain as card name, she gets 5,000 power and 5,000 shield after one player's turns. So cool, we have more number pressure that we can add for Krysrain's offensive, and we have more defensive pressure that we can apply if we need to defend for later stages or after our divine skill, quote unquote, fails. We can rely on Albina for that. So all around Albina is very solid, adds power or has extra shield, just a very good grade 1 to have, so we like to have her at 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of probably the best Sentinel restrictor I've ever seen, and the weird thing is because she doesn't restrict Sentinels, and that is Cynical Composer Rom. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard circle. During the battle that she boosted, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in her card name, she gets plus 5,000 power, so 13k, which is nice to have. And then auto rear guard, when she boosted grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in her card name specifically, if you have 4 more different card names, including herself and the Vanguard, so already you have 2 of them, you just need any 2 other units, Energy Blast 3, which Krysrain gets on her own, by the way, and until end of the battle, when your opponent would call cards from hand to guard circle that don't have Sentinel, they must call 3 more cards of different grades at the same time. So either they throw down a PG and they drop 2 cards, or they throw down at least 3, and those 3 cards have to have at least different grades. I think Rom is such a good PG stopper because she forces the opponent to use a PG on the attack, and if they don't, they're losing more hand cards. And while yes, they could be using those hand cards to help set up a free PG, they have to lose 3 cards of different grades, meaning they could possibly lose a Persona that they're planning on using next turn, or an important grade 2 they're planning on using next turn. Like, meaning even if they survive, you are now forcing them to throw out their offense that they would have used on the next turn here because they're choosing not to throw down a PG. Rom is all around pretty solid because she either forces the PG or just screws over the offense next turn entirely, and it's just a good grade 1. I think her skill is great. She's a 13k booster regardless of who she's boosting, as long as you're on a grade 3, and when she boosts a grade 3, specifically Krysrain, force out at least 3 cards or force out a PG. So 4 of Rom, very solid grade 1. She's very easy to pull off. She already has half her requirements done the second she boosts, so 4 of her. Then we have our last grade 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, of Lively Navy Tiffany. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto when this unit is run upon by Confident Aqua Musette. Reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard circle, so grade 2 list is normal unit, and put it to your hand if it's not. So, sadly, unlike the ride line from the demo deck, it will automatically superior call it whether you want it to or not, and you don't get a free search of the PG out of it if you call it a PG. But on the bright side, either the unit's going to rear guard if it's a normal unit that's grade 2 less, or it immediately goes to hand. So if it's a Persona ride or if it's a trigger, you're not losing that much. You're still getting the shield or Persona ride out of it. You're just not getting a rear guard or a drive check with it. So 1 of Tiffany in the ride deck, none in the main deck. Her skill is not amazing by any means, but her skill is fine. But I will say this, compared to the demo deck version, I will say this deck got the worst end of this deck considering. But to be fair though, it's kind of hard to top the demo deck when the demo deck literally just duplicates your PGs. So there's that. Then we have our grade 2, so like I said earlier, we obviously run Melty, Hop and Stellar Melty to be specific. Grade 2 normal, or sorry, not grade 2 normal order. Grade 2 and SF5k shield, 10k base. Friend continues rear guard circle. If you have another unit same combat sword, she and that unit become friends. And then auto when she's placed on rear guard circle during your main phase. By counter blasting 1, you get to shoot up to 1 card with grade less than equal to your Vanguard. Call it to your rear guard circle, and if you call it a card, you draw a card. Sadly, it works only during the main phase, so you can't spam it out with Krysrain's bounce and call skill. But on the bright side, by C being 1, you get a free rear guard to board, and then you get a draw card on top of that. And the fun part is, she procs off from either top deck or hand, so you can call her off of Tiffany and she'll still go off. The best part about this was, before she was revealed, Albina was Maya. If you don't know what Maya was this grade 1 back in the first trial deck for Lyrical Monasterio, the Assess's trial deck, and when she was placed on rear guard, she was a 3k base, she would Soul Blast 1, look at the top card, she would call it to rear guard, to an open rear guard circle, or you would add it to your hand and discard 1. What happened on camera with this deck, on the second game of me using it, rode from Tiffany into Musette. Tiffany called Maya. Maya Soul Blasted, called another Maya, who could proc off her own skill. By the way, the board was empty before I called either of the Mayas. Maya calls herself to rear guard. Soul Blast 1. We call Melty. Melty calls Melty, because then there's another Melty in hand. And then that Melty calls out Veta. The deck went from 0 rear guards to 5 in the single times, but actually, wait, it wasn't a, actually, first off, that wouldn't work. Never mind, so that move was illegal because that all happens during the ride phase, and Melty specifically during the main phase. But yeah, Melty would work off of Maya's skill if Maya was placed during the main phase. Either way though, Melty is a very solid grade 2, does help for board presence, help gets hand cards, and can lead to that funny combo if we forget that the main phase and ride phase are 2 very different phases. Then move on to 4 copies of What Color Is Your Wish Valstress Band. So she's the only card in this deck that's Soul Blast, so pretty much she reigns free over that. So grade 2, so 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she uses a card from your hand during your ride phase. By Soul Blasting when bot decking her, you get to draw a card, which is pretty solid, so she recycles herself, and she gets herself more hand cards. And then auto when she's placed on rear guard circle. If you Persona with this turn, and you have the CB to use her skill 4, counter boss 1, choose her Vanguards, and it gets continuous Vanguard circle. All your front row units get plus 5,000 power for the turn. So, being able to add more numbers to your front row is great. because it adds that little bit more pressure to your opponent, force them to throw out more hand cards in terms of guarding. And again, it does fluctuate the number that the divine skill would apply here. So being able to get more numbers to your extra attacker is pretty solid. And all around Valsplan is great. The only downside is she does eat away into the CB, and the deck does use CB a lot. So, you know, she's 50-50, but she is still a good grade 2. And if you do have the CB for her, I do recommend you do use her, because free 5k is free 5k. And again, she makes your ride decks free because she's the only card in the deck that costs souls, so very solid 4 of you can afford to have in the deck. We have 4 copies of our card that basically always makes us so we have rear guards, and that is Innocent Orange Enez. So grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she's placed on rear guard circle. If you have a grade 3, get a Vanguard Krysrain in her card name. Card boss 1 energy boss 3. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck to which a 1 unit card from among them with a different card name from your unit cards on your Vanguard or rear guard circles. Call it to rear guard circle, shuffle the deck. So pretty much you can't pick Krysrain, you can't pick herself. If those are your only 2 units on board, though, you automatically get anything else. And the best part is she can be placed during the battle phase, unlike Melty, and she will still be proccable out of that effect. So can get multi-attack as she's the target from Krysrain, which is pretty solid. And then auto rear guard when the team attacks into a grade 3 or greater unit. If you have 4 more different units with different card names on your board, she'll get plus 1,000 power to the battle. All around pretty solid because again she counts herself and Krysrain, like how Rom counts herself and Krysrain. So being able to have 2 more units, so she'll be a 20k swing on her own, is pretty solid. And again, she can't call more rear guards to board. Sadly, she obviously can't call herself. And sadly, even if we do call Melty from this skill, Melty will not allow us to get more rear guards, so we could attempt to do Anna as a skill. But if you do have a Maya in your deck, and you proceed to see Maya after Maya on top of, well, Maya after Maya would not be enough, because they obviously wouldn't have enough to, actually no. If you do call 1 Maya, and then the next card, as long as it's also not a Maya and Anna's or Krysrain, you could actually have the 4 different card names. So if you do run Maya, it is possible to use Anna as a skill to get a full board of 4 different card names when you call from Krysrain's skill. It's just going to be really difficult and really on top decking. But Anna's all around, very solid grade 2. Eats into the many EB that you have, which is fine. And then again, gets free rear guards possibly, and makes your deck a lot more consistent. So 4 of her. Then we have 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck of Confident Aqua Musette. Grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she was wrote upon by a grade 3 card with Krysrain as card name, reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard circle if it's a grade 3 realize normal unit, and put it to your hand if it's not. All around, pretty solid, you know. It does the exact same thing as the grade 1, and again, I do think that the Lyrical Monasterio real divine skill line got the shaft here because the demo deck one gets a free PG search, while this one, unlike how the grade 1 could fetch persona rights back into your hand, Musette automatically says F you lose the persona rights to board, which automatically means you have to have 4 other units in your hand of different card names, because the 2 Krysrains that you now have on board, or unless you somehow hit this, are going to have the same card names, so you have to have more units with different card names in hand. And you don't get it back, which sucks, because you can only bounce back once per game, so you gotta waste that and hope it survives the next turn. So, Musette's not an amazing grade 2. She's definitely worse compared to her grade 1 counterpart. She's definitely worse than her demo deck counterpart, but she's not horrible. She's just not nearly as good comparatively. So 1 of in the red deck, none in the main. Then we have 3 copies of Vivid Flush Whi, our first grade 3. Grade 3 to turn Persona 13k base. Auto rear guard circle when she attacks a grade 3 guard unit. If you have a grade 3 guard Vanguard Krysrain in her card name, she gets to counter boss 1, and she'll get plus 15,000 power for that battle. All around pretty solid, because regardless if she's attacking a Vanguard or rear guard, as long as it's a grade 3 or greater, and you have the Krysrain Vanguard, she's automatically a 28k swing, which is pretty solid. The only downside is she is into the CB, like our other very good cards, such as Melty, and Valsplan, and Anez. So she is your least priority when it comes to swinging, because the 28k doesn't really matter that much. But if you do have the free CB to use her, by all means go ahead, but she is kind of 50-50 in that regard, so 3 of. And then, of course, we have our last card in the deck, 1 of in the ride deck, 3 of in the main deck of our main grade 3, Faded 1 of Ever-Changing Krysrain. By the way, from afar, does anyone think that she looks like Demiurge when you're like just going back and forth like this really quickly? Because I swear, her backing, like these little arch things, make her look like Demiurge to me. I don't know why. Anyways, grade 3 to her Persona 13k base, 2 skills. Her first skill is really cool. Her divine skill is 50-50. Active Vanguard Circle once per turn by counter busting 1, perform 1 of the following. If you have 4 more units with different card names, perform 2 instead of 1. If you have 5 or more, perform all instead of 1, including herself, meaning you can have 1 open rear guard circle, and as long as everything else is different card names, you get to proc off the full ability. So draw a card, energy charge 3, choose 1 of your units, it gets plus 15k for the turn, and then this unit gets plus 1 crit for the turn. So you can choose to use those however you wish, if you can only pick 1 or if you can only pick 2, but typically you'll be able to activate all 3. So Getting a free energy charge 3 and drawing a card, basically meaning that the generator doesn't need to energy blast 7 is great, because that means, you can use Anez to top 5 search without having to worry about anything. Choose one of your units, it gets 15,000 power for the turn. Typically you pick herself, especially if it's the turn you're going to use the divine skill on to bounce stuff, but it is pick any unit, so you can pick a rear guard to make it have more numbers and add more pressure, so you could pick Weasley so you don't have to counterblast later for it. And she also gets a crit. So double critical Vanguard, again, typically you pick herself for the 15k, she's a 28k double critical, which is solid if you're on Persona Right, 38k double critical. And then why that matters, her divine skill, auto Vanguard, at the end of the she attacked a grade 3 or greater unit. Again, can be Vanguard or rear guard, but typically going to be the Vanguard. Return all your rear guards to your hand, jump to one card from your hand, call to rear guard circle, and is end of turn, increase or decrease that unit's power critical to match this unit's. So you can only use divine skill once per turn, once per game, a total among all your cards. So basically, if you gave her the 15k and a crit and you Persona Row, which is a 48k, whatever you call after you bounce all your stuff, so you can get 4 attacks, you swing with the rear guards and you swing with the Vanguard, you bounce, you call something, it's an automatic 48k, and then the Persona Ride will apply to that unit as well, so it would be a 58k, and then say for example that unit was Anez, you use Anez skill, you call another rear guard, say for example you do have Maya in your deck and you call Maya, use Maya's skill, hopefully you flip a card of a different card name, and then Anez is currently a 68k at least double critical unit, and this is why you typically stack all of your triggers onto Krysrain, so you can add a little bit more pressure to her. Sadly her divine skill is only once per game, so pretty much that divine skill is going to be your strongest turn in terms of offense, but again, does add nice pressure, and if you do see the over on top of that, then God help your opponent's soul. You do want to run the extra crits though, to see them more consistently so that she and whatever she calls will have triple crit that turn, but hey, is what is though. All around pretty solid card. Her first skill is really good in terms of like what it does, like free resources, and then she gives you free 15k to anyone, and then she gives you a free crit to herself on top of that are pretty good skills when it's a simple counter boss. And her divine skill is fine, but it's just bad because it's a once per game, and it's like the deck's only way of getting 4 attacks. But either way though, it is a good card and it is nice to have, so it's a good 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the red deck. And without further ado, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around the deck is fun to play. It gets rear guards consistently of different card names, and again the PGs here are here as a one of just in case, but typically you don't need to worry about that, and it would count the triggers too, because it does just say any units with different card names. It doesn't matter if they're triggers or normal units. The ride line is, again, compared to its demo deck counterpart, not nearly as cool, but it does have a really good support in grade 1 that forces out either a Sentinel or 3 cards, which is nice. It has a good set of power gainers. It has the friend package. It has so many options for rear guard gain, and it has a good resource maker in a grade 3. And if you do pull a crit on this divine skill turn, it does turn from like a 7 to a 10 in 5 seconds, so pretty solid. Either way though, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, don't follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.